The airport was buzzing with its usual chaos, suitcases rolling, flight announcements echoing, families saying tearful goodbyes. But amidst the noise, one man walked with quiet dignity. His back was straight, his pace steady though slowed by age. His faded cap, embroidered with the words Vietnam Veteran, drew a few respectful glances from passers-by. His name was James Whitaker, a 75-year-old veteran who had seen more battles than he cared to remember. For him, flying wasn't about excitement anymore, it was just a way to visit his daughter and grandchildren in Dallas. James moved through the terminal with practiced patience. The TSA line was long, and he sighed, gripping his worn leather bag. But just as he was preparing himself for another mundane process, something unexpected happened. A young man ahead of him in line, muscular but pale, wearing a loose hoodie and moving with a noticeable limp, suddenly staggered. His face contorted in pain, and before anyone could react, he collapsed to the floor. Gasps filled the air. A woman screamed for help. Without hesitation, James rushed forward. His reflexes were slower than they once were, but his training kicked in. He knelt by the man, noting the Marine Corps emblem tattooed on his forearm. His breathing was shallow, sweat poured down his face, and his hands trembled. James pressed 2 fingers to the man's neck. His pulse was erratic. "Son, stay with me," James commanded firmly, his voice both calm and urgent. "You're not going anywhere today, you hear me?" The young Marine barely opened his eyes, whispering hoarsely, I just came back. Afghanistan, leg injury, haven't eaten." His voice faded as his body gave way to exhaustion. The TSA staff scrambled, calling for medical assistance, but James remained steady, speaking in the language only soldiers understood. "Listen, Marine, you hold that line. Don't you dare quit on me now. You fought worse than this." His words weren't just medical encouragement, they were a lifeline, pulling the Marine back from the edge. A paramedic rushed in, but before they could lift him, the Marine clutched James's sleeve. His grip, though weak, was desperate. "Don't leave me," he whispered. James's throat tightened. Decades ago, in the jungles of Vietnam, he had watched young soldiers beg the same words. He had buried too many brothers who never made it home. And now, standing in an airport security line, he felt the same surge of responsibility. This Marine wasn't just a stranger. He was family. "I'm not going anywhere, son," James said, squeezing his hand. "Not until you're safe." The crowd looked on, silence falling over the area as paramedics stabilized the Marine. They explained he had suffered from dehydration and complications from a healing leg wound. He had pushed himself too hard, refusing help, determined to make his connecting flight alone. As the paramedics prepared to wheel him away, James spoke up. "Where's he headed?" The Marine weakly pointed to his boarding pass, tucked into his pocket. James pulled it out and read aloud, "Flight to Dallas." His heart skipped. "The same flight as mine." The airline initially resisted letting the Marine board in his condition, but James wouldn't hear of it. "I'll sit with him," he insisted. "I'll make sure he's okay every step of the way." The determination in his voice silenced the objections. During the flight, James never left the Marine's side. He helped him adjust his leg brace, made sure he drank water, and even offered part of his own sandwich when the young man admitted he hadn't eaten in 2 days. Between sips of water, the Marine, whose name was Daniel, shared fragments of his story. He had been discharged only a week ago, sent home with a medal and a limp. But medals didn't pay the bills, and he had no one waiting for him. His parents had passed away years earlier, and his only sibling had cut ties long ago. He was heading to Dallas in search of a new start, but the truth was, he was scared. James listened silently, his heart aching. He saw in Daniel the same haunted eyes he had once carried himself. The memories of war never faded, they just buried themselves until something cracked them open again. "Son," James said softly, "I know what it feels like to come home and not feel at home. But you don't have to do this alone. Not anymore." Daniel's eyes welled up, his tough facade breaking. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." James looked at him firmly. "Because you're a Marine. Because you served. And because I promised myself, after losing too many brothers in Vietnam, that if I ever had the chance to help one more soldier come home alive, I would." The cabin was quiet, but a few nearby passengers, who had overheard, wiped tears from their eyes. By the time the plane landed, the bond between James and Daniel had grown into something unshakable. James called his daughter from the gate and explained everything. Without hesitation, she agreed. Daniel could stay with them until he found his footing. As they walked off the plane together, James placed a reassuring hand on Daniel's shoulder. For the first time in years, the young Marine smiled, genuine, though fragile. And James felt something he hadn't in decades, hope. The crowd that had witnessed the collapse earlier was waiting near the baggage claim. When they saw James supporting the Marine, applause broke out, spontaneous, heartfelt. Travelers, security guards, even flight attendants clapped, honoring not just one man, but 2 generations of soldiers who had fought different wars yet carried the same scars. Daniel's journey wasn't over, and James knew there would be battles ahead, nightmares, pain, the struggle of rebuilding a life. But he also knew that sometimes, all a soldier needed was one person who refused to walk away, and in that airport, on that ordinary day turned extraordinary, an old veteran kept his promise to never leave a brother behind.